The human colony of Haven's Edge was quiet at night, the kind of quiet that made old soldiers uneasy. Soft blue lights lined the streets, humming low as they adjusted to the sleeping cycle of a dozen species. Most residents were already inside their homes, sealed doors and drawn shields keeping the cold alien wind outside. Inside one small housing unit near the edge of the colony lived a human named Elias Mercer. Elias was not important in the way politicians or admirals were important. He held no rank now, no title. To the colony registry, he was simply a retired human security contractor. To his neighbors, he was the quiet human who never caused trouble, never joined gatherings, and never complained. But Elias had once survived a war that had broken planets. That war had taught him to listen to silence. So when the knock came at his door just after midnight, Elias was already awake. The sound was soft, careful, not the kind of knock used by officials or enforcers. It was the knock of someone afraid to be heard. Elias did not reach for a weapon, but his body tensed out of habit. He checked the door display. The figure standing outside was tall and slender, wrapped in a dark cloak. Her skin was a muted silver blue, duller than most of her species. Long dark hair fell loosely over her shoulders. Her posture was straight, but her hands trembled slightly at her sides. Elias recognized her. She was his neighbor. Her name, according to the registry, was Celira Venn, widow. Elias paused. In Haven's Edge, widows did not knock on doors at night unless something had gone terribly wrong. He opened the door. Cold air rushed in, carrying the faint metallic scent common to Celira's species. She lifted her eyes to meet his, and for a moment neither of them spoke. "May I come in?" she asked quietly. Her voice was controlled, but there was fear beneath it, not panic, not hysteria, fear sharpened by intelligence. Elias stepped aside without a word. The door sealed shut behind her and the outside lights vanished. Inside, the room was simple. A table, 2 chairs, a shelf of old human books, no decorations, no signs of family. Celira stood near the door, hands folded now as if bracing herself. "I would not come," she said, "if there were any other option." Elias nodded. "Sit." She hesitated, then obeyed, lowering herself carefully into one of the chairs. Her cloak slipped slightly, revealing the faint mourning markings along her neck. Fresh, official. Elias sat across from her. He did not rush her. Silence, he knew, could be a tool or a comfort. Celira took a slow breath. "My mate died 3 cycles ago," she said. "You likely heard." "I did," Elias replied. The colony announcement had been brief. An accident during a trade inspection. Case closed. Celira's eyes darkened. "It was not an accident." Elias said nothing. "In my culture," she continued, "a widow without bonded protection is considered available, not as a person, as an asset." She looked down at her hands. "Our property, our research rights, even our genetic future, all can be claimed." Elias leaned back slightly. "And you're saying someone is trying to claim you?" "Yes." She looked up again, meeting his gaze directly now. "Several someones." Elias studied her face. There were no dramatic gestures, no tears, just exhaustion and controlled fear. He believed her. "Why me?" he asked. Celira's lips parted slightly, as if she had expected the question and still dreaded it. "Because you are human," she said. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Humans," she continued, "are legally difficult. Your species joined the council but never fully submitted to its internal inheritance laws. A human bond overrides most predatory claims." "So you want me to scare them off," Elias said flatly. "Yes," she replied, "but not with violence, with law." She reached into her cloak and placed a small data crystal on the table between them. "A bonded human partner," she said, "even a temporary one, would place me under shared protection. Any attempt to seize me would become an interspecies incident." Elias stared at the crystal. "That's a big ask," he said. "I know. Why not another of your own kind?" Celira's jaw tightened. "Because they would benefit from my loss." Elias exhaled slowly. This was already deeper than he liked. "Let us be clear," he said. "I'm not buying into a marriage, a romance, or anything like that." "I am not asking for that," Celira said quickly. "Only a legal bond, public, formal, time-limited. And dangerous," Elias added. "Yes." The room fell silent again. Elias stood and walked to the window, looking out at the dim colony lights. He had chosen Haven's Edge because it was quiet, because no one here cared about the past. He had wanted a life where doors stayed closed at night. Behind him, Celira spoke again, her voice lower now. "They already know I came here," she said. "They are watching." Elias did not turn around. "You sure about that?" "I would not gamble my life otherwise." Elias clenched his jaw. "Humans," Celira continued, "are seen as inconvenient. You do not follow expected patterns. You protect those you claim even when logic says you should not." Elias turned back to her. "That reputation gets people killed." She met his gaze steadily. "So does doing nothing." Another silence. Elias returned to his chair and sat down. He did not touch the data crystal yet. "What happens if I say no?" he asked. Celira did not hesitate. "Within days, my mate's assets will be challenged, my residence reassigned. I will be forced into a secondary bond or removed from the colony." "Removed how?" Her eyes flickered. "The official term is relocation." Elias nodded once. He had heard that word before, too many times. He picked up the crystal, turning it slowly in his fingers. "This makes me a target," he said. "Yes, for people who don't like humans. Yes, for people who don't like you. Yes, for people who don't like the truth about your mate's death." Celira's breathing caught for just a moment. "Yes," she whispered. Elias set the crystal back down. "You understand," he said, "that if I do this, I won't have to it." Celira straightened slightly. "That is why I came to you." Elias studied her for a long moment, searching for manipulation, for deceit. He found none, only fear and resolve. Outside, something moved past the window, too quiet to be casual. Elias' eyes flicked briefly toward it. "You're right," he said. "They're watching." Celira swallowed. Elias leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "If I agree," he said, "you follow my rules." "I will," she said immediately. "No secrets that put me in danger. I swear it. No disappearing without telling me." "Yes." "And if someone comes for you," Elias said, his voice calm and steady, "they come through me first." Celira held his gaze. Slowly, deliberately, she lowered her head in a formal gesture of respect from her culture. "Then," she said softly, "I place my life under your protection." Elias felt the weight of those words settle into the room. He nodded once. "All right," he said. "We do it. Temporary bond, public registration." Relief washed over Celira's face. Not joy, not triumph, but something closer to safety. She exhaled a breath she had clearly been holding for a long time. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me yet," Elias replied. "This is just the beginning." As if on cue, the colony alert system chimed softly in the background. A neutral tone, informational. Elias checked the display. An automated notice appeared. Unscheduled legal interest detected. He looked back at Celira. "Looks like your predators move fast," he said. She stood, cloak falling back into place. "So do humans," she replied. Outside, unseen eyes watched the human's door with new interest, because it had just opened. And the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. Morning came to Haven's Edge with soft alarms and shifting light panels, but for Elias Mercer, sleep never really arrived. He stood near the window, watching the street below. Patrol drones floated past at regular intervals, their routes slightly altered from the previous day. That alone told him things were already changing. Celira stood behind him, quiet, composed, though the tension in her posture had not faded. "They increase patrols," Elias said, "not for safety, for observation." "Yes," Celira replied, "they want witnesses." Elias turned from the window. "Then we don't hide." She tilted her head slightly. "That is not how my people survive. It is how humans do," he said calmly. They left the housing unit together an hour later. No disguises, no cloak pulled tight. Salira walked beside Elias, not behind him. That mattered. In mixed-species colonies, position was language. Eyes followed them. Some were curious, some were hostile, others were calculating. The registry tower rose at the center of the colony, a wide structure of layered metal and glass, where legal matters were processed by both organic officials and artificial systems. Elias had avoided the place since his arrival. Today, he walked toward it without hesitation. Inside, the air was cool and sterile. A queue formed naturally, species separating by instinct rather than rule. When Salira stepped into the human line, murmurs spread. An official approached them, a tall being with segmented eyes and polished armor markings. "State your purpose," the official said. Elias spoke first. "Legal bond registration, cross-species, temporary." That caused a pause. The official's eyes shifted to Salira. "You are recently widowed." "Yes," she replied evenly. "Such bonds are uncommon." "Not illegal," Elias said. The official hesitated, then gestured them forward. "Proceed." The registration chamber was circular, its center occupied by a floating interface of light and symbols. As Elias placed his hand on the scanner, he felt a familiar pressure, the same sensation used during military clearances. Salira placed her hand beside his. The system processed silently. Then a tone sounded. Neutral. Confirming. Temporary protective bond registered. Duration, renewable, jurisdiction, shared. The words appeared in multiple languages, including Human Standard. Elias exhaled slowly. Salira closed her eyes for a brief moment, then opened them again. Something in her expression had changed. Not relief alone, stability. But the room was no longer quiet. Observers had gathered near the edges. Some left immediately, sending messages. Others stayed, studying Elias with renewed interest. As they exited the tower, Elias felt it clearly now. The attention was no longer on Salira. It was on him. They did not return directly home. Elias insisted on walking the longer route through the commercial district. He wanted to see who followed, who avoided, who pretended not to notice. 3 followed openly. 2 hid poorly. 1 watched from above. "Subtle," Elias muttered. Salira's voice was low. "They are testing you." "Good," he said. "Let them." At a narrow intersection, a group stepped into their path. 4 individuals, all from Salira's species, their markings indicating minor houses with legal authority. One spoke. "This bond will be reviewed." Elias did not stop walking. "File the challenge." "This is not a suggestion." Elias finally stopped. He turned slowly, meeting the speaker's gaze. "Yes," he said, "it is." There was something about the way he said it. No threat, no anger. Just certainty. The group stepped aside. They did not pursue. Salira looked at him once they were clear. "You embarrassed them." "They embarrassed themselves," Elias replied. "Never corner a human unless you're ready to finish it." Back at the housing unit, Elias sealed the door and activated privacy shielding. The hum of the field settled around them. "Now," he said, "we talk details." Salira nodded and sat. Elias leaned against the table. "Your mate, his work, his death." She hesitated only a second. "He was investigating resource transfers," she said. "Hidden ones, technology that never reached the council." "Illegal trade," Elias said. "Yes, and worse, weaponized research disguised as medical development." Elias' expression darkened slightly. "That would get a human scientist disappeared too." "They killed him quietly," Salira said, "but they underestimated what he shared with me." She touched the side of her neck, activating a hidden implant. A small projection appeared above the table, lines of data scrolling. Elias studied it carefully. "This is enough to start a war," he said. "That is why they want me silent," she replied. "And now," Elias said, "they want me scared." Salira looked down. "I did not intend to endanger you." Elias shook his head. "You intended to survive." "That's honest." A sharp chime interrupted them. Elias checked the system. Formal legal challenge filed, review scheduled. That was fast, he said. Yes, Salira replied. They will try to overwhelm you with process. Elias smiled faintly. Good luck with that. The next days were a blur of notices, filings, and thinly veiled intimidation. Inspectors arrived unannounced. Drones hovered too close to the windows. Anonymous messages warned Elias to reconsider. He ignored them all. Instead, he worked. He reviewed interspecies law. He contacted human legal networks. He filed counter-notices that forced delays, audits, and transparency requirements the challengers had not expected. Salira watched him from the doorway one evening as he worked late into the night. "You are very calm," she said. "I'm busy," Elias replied without looking up. "Calm comes later." She stepped closer. "Most would have panicked by now. Most didn't survive what I did," he said simply. She studied him in silence. "You humans," she said softly, "you do not display dominance the way others do." "No," Elias agreed. "We display endurance." That night the first real test came. The power flickered. Elias was on his feet instantly. He moved Salira behind him, his hand activating a concealed device at his wrist. The door alarm spiked. "Unauthorized access attempt," the system announced. Elias did not shout, he did not rush. He waited. The door shuddered once, then twice, then stopped. A moment later, the colony emergency channel activated. Attempted violation logged, evidence recorded. Response units dispatched. Elias lowered his arm. Outside, hurried footsteps retreated. Salira's breathing was shallow. They crossed a line. "Yes," Elias said, "and they failed." She looked at him, something like awe in her eyes. "You were not afraid." "I was," he said. "I just didn't let it choose for me." In the following cycle, word spread quickly. Not just that the attempt failed, but that it had been recorded, logged, and legally flagged. The predators learned something important. The human was not isolated. Human diplomats arrived 2 days later. Not warships, not soldiers, just officials with calm voices and perfect timing. They requested information. They requested transparency. They requested explanations. The colony shifted again. Salira stood beside Elias during the meeting, no longer a target hiding behind a door, but a protected individual standing under human law. Later, as the diplomats departed, Salira turned to Elias. "I did not expect this," she said. "Neither did they," he replied. She hesitated, then spoke carefully. "When I came to your door, I thought this bond would be temporary." Elias looked at her. "Still might be." "Yes," she said, "but now I think they fear it may become something else." Elias did not answer right away. Outside, the colony lights adjusted again, responding to a new balance of power. Somewhere beyond Haven's edge, plans were changing, because the galaxy was beginning to understand something it often forgot. Humans did not seek control. But once involved, they did not let go. The colony did not relax after the failed intrusion. If anything, Haven's edge became quieter, and Elias knew that was worse. Loud enemies were careless. Silent ones planned. 3 days after the attempted breach, Elias noticed a change in the patrol routes again. The drones flew higher now, farther apart, giving the illusion of reduced security. He did not believe it. Salira noticed it too. "They want us to feel safe," she said as they stood near the window. "They want us to lower our guard," Elias replied. She folded her arms, her expression thoughtful. "In my culture, this stage comes before public accusation." Elias glanced at her. "Explain." "When private pressure fails," she said, "they move to reputation. They will try to make you look dangerous, unstable, unfit to hold a bond." Elias gave a small, humorless smile. "That's familiar." The accusation came sooner than expected. It arrived as a formal notice, broadcast across the colony network and logged in public records. Elias read it once, then again, his jaw tightening slightly. Human Elias Mercer is under review for excessive influence, concealed military capability, and potential threat to interspecies stability. Celira felt cold spread through her chest as she read it over his shoulder. They are turning you into the problem. They always do, Elias said calmly. This could invalidate the bond, she said, if they prove you are a risk. They won't prove it, Elias replied. They'll try to suggest it. Within hours the whispers began. Some neighbors avoided them, others watched openly. A few looked afraid now, not of Celira but of Elias. The irony did not escape him. That afternoon a summons arrived, a formal inquiry, mandatory attendance. Celira's hands tightened. This is a trap. Yes, Elias said, but a public one. The inquiry chamber was larger than the registration hall, designed to hold observers. And it was full. Representatives from multiple species sat in curved rows. Legal officials floated above the floor. Recording devices hovered silently. Elias and Celira stood at the center. An elder representative spoke first. This inquiry exists to determine whether the human bond presents a destabilizing factor within Haven's Edge. Elias nodded once. Understood. You are a former military asset, the elder continued. Your history is incomplete. Classified, Elias said. Convenient, another voice said. Elias turned slightly, meeting the speaker's gaze. Necessary. A ripple of quiet reaction spread through the chamber. Celira was asked to speak next. Do you feel coerced? An official asked her. No, she replied. Do you fear your bonded partner? No. Do you believe his presence escalates conflict? Celira paused, then spoke clearly. Conflict existed before him. He merely revealed it. That answer drew murmurs. Then the questioning turned toward Elias again. Why did you agree to this bond? An official asked. Because it was right, Elias said simply. That is not a legal justification. It is a human one. Some shifted uncomfortably at that. You possess tactical training, another official said. Why bring such capacity into a civilian dispute? Elias met their gaze. I didn't bring it. It was already here. I just didn't hide it. A pause followed. Then the elder raised a hand. We have received evidence suggesting you acted aggressively during the recent intrusion. Elias' eyes narrowed slightly. Define aggressive. You activated a concealed device to protect my bonded partner. Did you pursue the intruders? No. Did you retaliate? No. Then how were they repelled? Elias' voice was steady. They failed. The elder studied him. You expect us to believe that fear alone stopped them? Yes, Elias said. Fear of consequences. The chamber went quiet. That was when the true move came. A representative from one of the major houses stood. We submit evidence that the human manipulated the widow using his species' reputation to gain access to restricted data. Celira felt the words like a physical blow. Elias turned sharply. That's a lie. Prove it, the representative said calmly. Celira stepped forward before Elias could speak. I shared the data willingly before the bond. The representative smiled thinly. And why would you do that? Because my mate trusted him, she said. That caused a stir. Your mate, the representative said, was reckless. Elias moved then, not fast, not violently, just one step forward. Say that again, he said quietly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The elder struck the floor with a staff. Order. Elias stepped back, but his eyes never left the speaker. The inquiry recessed shortly after. No ruling, no closure, which meant one thing: they were not done. That night, Elias received a message through a human-secured channel. They won't win legally. They'll force a crisis. Be ready. He deleted it after reading. Celira watched him. Someone warned you. Yes, who? Doesn't matter, she studied his face. You are preparing for something. Yes. For what? Elias looked at her. For when they stop pretending. The crisis came 2 nights later. A transport malfunction in the lower habitat ring. Atmosphere leak. Emergency alarms. Evacuation ordered. Too clean, too fast. Elias felt it immediately. That's not random. They were already moving when the colony broadcast shifted. Emergency response units required. All bonded individuals report to secure zones. That splits us, Salira said. Exactly, Elias replied. He grabbed a small pack already prepared. We're not following that order. That is illegal, Salira said. So is murder disguised as evacuation, Elias replied. They moved through service corridors, avoiding main paths. Elias knew these routes from colony schematics he had studied quietly for weeks. They reached the lower ring just as emergency lights flickered on. The leak was real, but controlled, and waiting. Figures emerged from the shadows, enforcers, private ones. Elias stepped in front of Salira without hesitation. You should not have come, one of the enforcers said. No, Elias replied. You shouldn't have. The standoff lasted seconds. Elias did not charge. He did not threaten. He activated his wrist device again, projecting a live signal into the colony network. Attention, his voice echoed, calm and clear. This is Elias Mercer. Unauthorized armed presence detected in evacuation zone. Recording live. Human oversight notified. The enforcers froze. They had expected fear. They had expected isolation. They had not expected exposure. One of them lunged. Elias moved, not with rage, with precision. He disarmed the attacker in a single motion, sending the weapon skidding across the floor. Another hesitated. Another retreated. Sirens wailed louder now. Security units arrived, official ones. The enforcers were detained. Evidence was logged. Faces recorded. Salira stood frozen, staring at Elias. You planned this, she said softly. I expected it, he corrected. Later, as they stood in a secured chamber while officials scrambled to explain, Salira finally spoke again. They tried to kill me, she said. Yes, Elias replied. And you stopped them. Yes. She looked at him, truly looked at him, not as a protector of convenience but as something else entirely. In my culture, she said quietly, such defense creates a debt that cannot be dismissed. Elias met her gaze. I'm not collecting. I know, she said. That makes it worse for them. The next cycle the inquiry reconvened. This time the chamber was silent with tension. The evidence spoke clearly. Unauthorized enforcers, manipulated emergency, recorded admissions. The accusation against Elias collapsed. The houses involved withdrew from public view. No apologies were issued, but fear changed direction. As Elias and Salira left the chamber together, the eyes watching them were different now. Cautious, respectful, afraid. Outside, Salira stopped walking. Elias, she said. He turned. When I came to your door, she said, I thought you were a shield. And now, she said softly, I think you are a warning. Elias nodded once. That, he said, is usually how it goes. Above Haven's Edge, messages traveled fast, not about war. Not about threats, but about a simple, dangerous truth. The human had not broken, and the galaxy was running out of ways to test him. After the failed ambush and the collapse of the accusations, Haven's Edge did not celebrate. The colony settled into a tense calm like a held breath. People spoke softly. Doors stayed closed longer. Messages were sent in coded language. Elias noticed everything. He and Salira returned to their housing unit under official escort, not for protection but for visibility. The colony wanted everyone to see that the human and the widow still stood together. Inside, the door sealed and the quiet returned. They will not try again the same way, Salira said, breaking the silence. No, Elias agreed. They'll try bigger, she looked at him. Bigger how? With permission, he said. She frowned slightly. From whom? From the council. Salira felt a chill. They would risk that. They already have, Elias replied. Now they need legitimacy. The next day the notice arrived. A full tribunal, not a colony inquiry. Not a local review, a council tribunal, attendance mandatory, outcome binding. Salira read the notice twice, her hands steady but her eyes dark. This is not about us anymore. No, Elias said. It's about precedent. The tribunal chamber was not on Haven's Edge. It was virtual, projected into a shared legal space used by hundreds of systems. Representatives appeared as lifelike projections, seated in tiers that seemed to stretch endlessly upward. Human delegates appeared as well, calm, observant, silent. Elias and Celira stood together at the center, their bond marker visible in the system overlay. The lead council arbiter spoke. This tribunal will determine whether the continued presence of a bonded human constitutes a destabilizing force within council territory. Celira's jaw tightened. Elias said nothing. The actions of Elias Mercer, the arbiter continued, have resulted in exposure of private enforcement networks, disruption of emergency protocols, and humiliation of established houses. Elias lifted his eyes. Truth often does that. A murmur rippled through the projections. The arbiter's tone sharpened. This is not a forum for commentary. Then don't frame facts as crimes, Elias replied calmly. Celira glanced at him, then back at the council. The houses spoke next, carefully. Politely, they did not accuse Elias of violence now. They accused him of influence. Humans, one representative said, do not understand balance. They escalate situations that require subtlety. Elias tilted his head. You mean silence? Restraint, the representative corrected. Celira spoke then, her voice steady. Restraint did not save my mate. The chamber shifted. That death is not under review, another voice said quickly. That is the problem, Celira replied. The tribunal paused for internal consultation. Elias felt the shift in timing, the small delays that meant decisions were being shaped behind closed channels. This is where they try to separate us, Celira said quietly. They won't, Elias replied, even if they order it. Elias met her eyes. Especially then, the arbiter returned. The council proposes a resolution, it said. The bond will be dissolved. Celira Venn will be placed under neutral custodianship. Elias Mercer will be relocated outside council-controlled space. Silence fell. Human delegates did not react. Not yet. Celira felt something twist inside her chest. That is exile. Yes, the arbiter said, for stability. Elias inhaled slowly. No, he said, the word echoed, the arbiter's eyes narrowed. You do not have veto authority. Elias nodded. I know. He raised his wrist and activated a secure channel. Human symbols appeared across the chamber, subtle but unmistakable. Then let me clarify something, Elias said. Humans do not accept custodianship over bonded partners, ever. A human delegate finally spoke. The bond is recognized under human law. And human law, Elias continued, does not allow forced dissolution without consent. The arbiter leaned forward. Council law supersedes. In your territory, Elias interrupted. Not in ours. The chamber erupted into layered voices. Celira stood frozen, realizing what was happening. Elias was not arguing the bond. He was drawing a line. If you dissolve this bond, Elias said, his voice steady, you are not stabilizing the region. You are declaring that human protection means nothing. The arbiter hesitated. And if you relocate me, Elias continued, you confirm what everyone already suspects, that this council fears exposure more than conflict. The human delegates stood, not aggressively, together. This is not a threat, one said calmly. It is a statement of consequence. The tribunal recessed again, longer this time. Celira whispered, you are risking everything. Elias replied softly, I already did, when I opened the door. When the tribunal resumed, the atmosphere had changed. The council, the arbiter said slowly, will not dissolve the bond at this time. Relief surged through Celira. However, the arbiter continued, a condition will be imposed. Elias' eyes narrowed. An independent investigation into the death of Celira Venn's mate will be authorized, the arbiter said, led jointly by council and human observers. The houses reacted instantly. Protest, objection, fear. Elias said nothing, he only watched. And the arbiter added, Elias Mercer will be recognized as a legal protector under emergency statute. Celira turned sharply toward Elias. "That makes you untouchable," she whispered. "It makes me responsible," he replied. The tribunal ended. Across the network, reactions spread faster than light. Analysts debated, houses retreated, allies recalculated. Back on Haven's Edge, the air felt different when Elias and Celira returned. Not safer, clearer. That night, Celira stood at the window, watching the colony lights. "In my people's history," she said, "there are stories of turning points, moments when everything changes direction." Elias leaned against the wall. "This feels like one." "Yes," she said, "and it frightens me." "Good," he replied gently. "Fear keeps us honest." She turned to him. "You could have walked away, accepted exile." "I could have," Elias said, "but then they would learn the wrong lesson." She stepped closer. "Which is?" "That humans fold when pressed hard enough." She studied his face. "You are not what the galaxy expects." "No," he agreed. "That's why we survive." Days later, the investigation began. Data was unlocked, records unsealed, names surfaced. The truth about Celira's mate spread like a shockwave. Illegal weapons research, council blind spots, profits hidden behind law. The houses denied involvement. The evidence disagreed. One evening, Celira received confirmation. Her mate had tried to expose it all, and paid the price. She sat quietly after reading the report, her hands folded, her expression unreadable. Elias did not interrupt. After a long time, she spoke. "He believed the system could be fixed." Elias nodded. "He was right, it just needed pressure." She looked at him. "You became that pressure." "Only because they pushed first," Elias said. "Outside, the colony adjusted again, not through force. Through understanding." People began to greet Celira openly. Some nodded to Elias. Others avoided him entirely. Both reactions were acceptable. One night, as they stood together in the quiet of the housing unit, Celira spoke softly. "The bond was meant to be temporary." Elias looked at her. "Still is, if you want it to be." She met his gaze. "Do you?" Elias considered the question, the danger, the cost. Then he answered honestly. "I want you safe," he said. "Whatever that means." She inclined her head slightly, a gesture of respect and something deeper. "Then," she said, "we continue." Outside, the stars above Haven's Edge burned steadily. The council had learned a hard lesson, not about power, but about what happens when a human decides something matters and refuses to let go. The colony of Haven's Edge was quieter than usual, though Elias knew better than to trust appearances. Silence rarely meant safety. He and Celira had grown used to it, walking through streets where glances followed them, where whispers lingered even when voices were gone. The tribunal had ended in their favor, but the aftermath was ongoing, a delicate dance of observation, respect, and veiled threat. Elias stood at the window of his unit, arms crossed, eyes scanning the streets below. Patrol drones hovered in calculated patterns. Citizens moved through the streets with cautious eyes. The humans had left, but the consequences of their involvement rippled outward. The houses that had tried to unseat Celira now knew she was not alone. Celira approached quietly, her hands folded in front of her. She did not speak at first, just observed Elias. "You have changed everything," she said softly. Elias turned his head slightly. "Not everything. Just the part they thought they controlled." "They will not try again," she said. Elias shook his head. "They will try, but differently, smarter, subtle, indirect." She frowned. "Then what do we do?" He smiled faintly, a calm that belied the tension in his body. "We continue. As we have, visible, unafraid, honest." The days that followed were a balance of routine and readiness. Elias reviewed legal filings, updated security protocols, and monitored the colony for signs of manipulation. Celira moved among neighbors and colleagues, her confidence gradually returning. The presence of a human protector altered how people treated her, and they responded with a mix of respect and fear. She realized that in a subtle way, Elias had become more than a shield. He was a statement. One evening, the emergency channels of Haven's Edge lit up with a flurry of signals. A ship had been flagged entering colony airspace without prior clearance. Protocols dictated that armed response units intercept immediately, but Elias did not move toward the alert. He simply activated a secure channel and projected a live feed into the colony network. "Attention," he announced. "Unauthorized vessel detected. Recording live." All legal oversight notified. The colony's security systems responded instantly, scanning the ship. On board, a small crew of armed mercenaries from a rival house had attempted an unsanctioned reconnaissance mission. They had not anticipated that the human they sought would be watching. They had expected fear, hesitation, or confusion. They had not expected exposure. By the time the response units arrived, the intruders were detained, and the evidence was already logged in multiple official records. Celira watched Elias, her expression a mix of awe and disbelief. "You predicted this," she said softly. "I anticipated it," he corrected. The incident set a precedent. Word of the human's foresight and unyielding vigilance spread quickly. For the first time, the colony and the surrounding houses understood that Elias Mercer was not someone to be underestimated. Days later, the independent investigation into her mate's death concluded. The findings were stark. High-ranking members of the council had conspired to conceal illegal technological development, using her mate as a scapegoat. The evidence was irrefutable, and those responsible faced immediate censure. The political landscape shifted overnight, and alliances were reconsidered. Celira received the report quietly, letting the weight of it settle. "He trusted the system could be fixed," she said, referring to her mate. "He believed it could be corrected." Elias nodded. "He was right, it just needed pressure, and the right leverage." She looked at him. "You became that leverage." "Yes," he said. "Because they left me no choice." The bond between them, initially a legal necessity, had transformed over the cycles. Celira no longer viewed Elias solely as a protector. His steadfastness, clarity, and commitment had revealed a new dimension of strength, something she had rarely encountered in her people. She found herself trusting him completely, not just with her life, but with her confidence and judgment. They walked together through the colony one morning, their bond publicly recognized and visible. The difference was palpable. Citizens who once avoided them now gave respectful nods. Officials deferred to them subtly. The power dynamics had shifted, and the presence of a human protector altered every interaction. Elias observed everything as he always did, while remaining calm and unobtrusive. He did not need recognition, he needed awareness. Every gesture, every glance, every shift in behavior told a story. The colony learned quickly. Humans, when committed, did not act recklessly. They acted decisively, and they protected what they claimed. Celira spoke softly as they paused at a street corner. "They fear you." "Yes," Elias said, "they should. But it is not just fear," she observed. "It is respect." "Respect earned through clarity and action," he replied. "Not threats, not bluster, just truth." For the first time since her mate's death, Celira felt secure. Not just safe physically, but confident in the fact that the system, flawed though it was, could work when someone refused to compromise on principle. She realized the human beside her was more than a protector. He was a catalyst, a single presence that altered the rules entirely. Over the next cycles, Haven's edge stabilized. The previous houses that had sought to control Celira retreated quietly, understanding that direct confrontation with a human would be unwise. The colony adjusted, both politically and socially, to the undeniable reality. Humans, though few, had a power unlike any other: resilience, loyalty, and unwavering logic in the face of intimidation. Elias and Celira returned to their housing unit one evening after a day of monitoring the colony's systems. They did not speak immediately, both absorbed in the quiet hum of their space. Finally, Celira broke the silence. "When I came to your door," she said softly, "I believed this bond would be temporary, that it would serve only to protect me until danger passed. Elias considered her words carefully. It still can, he said, if you want it to. She met his gaze fully this time, no hesitation in her eyes. Do you want it to? I want you safe, he said honestly. Whatever that means, temporary or permanent, it does not matter. Protection is a responsibility, not a favor. She smiled faintly, a gesture that carried relief, respect, and something deeper, gratitude and understanding that transcended words. Then we continue, she said. The stars above Haven's edge glimmered steadily, unchanging in their vastness. Yet within the colony, history had shifted quietly but profoundly. Elias Mercer had opened a door one night, accepting responsibility not because he sought glory, but because he recognized injustice when he saw it. That single act had sparked a chain of events that no one could have predicted. Across the galaxy, news traveled, not through grand announcements or military dispatches, but through whispers and recalculations. The presence of a human in the colony, standing firm and unyielding, had changed the rules of engagement. Other houses and colonies began to reconsider how they approached humans. They remembered the lessons. Humans did not seek domination, but once involved, they did not let go. In the quiet of their housing unit, Celira watched Elias as he reviewed data logs. She realized she had not only survived the trials of the past cycles, but she had also found someone who exemplified what her people often underestimated in humans: endurance, intelligence, and loyalty that did not falter under pressure. "Do you ever tire of this?" she asked quietly. Elias looked up, expression calm. "Not yet. Responsibility is not tiring, neglect is," she nodded slowly. "Then I am grateful you are here." "Gratitude is unnecessary," he said, "but acknowledged." They stood together, side by side, watching the quiet city. The bond that had begun as a legal formality had grown into something unspoken yet undeniable, a partnership built on trust, survival, and understanding. It was not romantic, not yet, but it was powerful. And in a galaxy where power often came at the cost of life and freedom, that was enough. Outside, Haven's edge adjusted to a new normal. Patrols continued. Observers remained vigilant. Houses that had sought control remained cautious. But none dared challenge the human and the widow openly, not because of intimidation, because they had learned the truth. Humans, once committed, were not easily undone. Celira looked at Elias once more. "You opened a door that changed everything," she said softly. "I only did what was necessary," he replied. "The rest, the galaxy did on its own." And in that quiet, unassuming housing unit, the bond between human and alien stood firm. They were not merely surviving. They were reshaping the rules of engagement, one measured action at a time. The galaxy had been reminded that when a human decides something matters, it matters completely. And when they choose to protect, there are no limits to their endurance. As night fell, Haven's edge glimmered softly under distant stars. Within the unit, a human and a widow stood side by side, unafraid, unwavering, and ready for whatever came next. The galaxy had learned a quiet, undeniable truth. When a human opens a door, history can change. And sometimes it did.